Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. Today I'm going to tell you guys the story of the Brave Little Tailor. If you guys don't know already, Storycraft is where I tell you a story and I do a craft. So here we are. If you have a request for a story that you would like to hear in this segment, you can leave it in the comments below. Also, I have a Patreon you can check out with like cool content. Right now there's some like craft with me's behind the scenes, like an almost 2-hour craft with me. It's kind of ridiculous actually. So yeah, there's cool things up there to check out. Witchy things, crafty things, chatty things. But yeah, let's jump into it. The Brave Little Tailor comes to us from the Grimm brothers, masters of fairy tales and folklore, and all I could find about it was that it was a Grimm fairy tale, and it was probably German, and I couldn't find anything else historically interesting about this story, which makes it more interesting to me. But I have lots of feelings about this story, which I'll share at the end, like I usually do. But right now, we're just going to get into it. So, we're going to start in the way, way long ago with the tale of the Brave Little Tailor. So, there once was a tailor, okay, doing the thing tailors do, sewing, mending, cutting fabric, those sorts of things, tailor things. He's working away diligently, trying to fill the orders that he does have. He's not a super popular tailor, he's just like a regular run-of-the-mill tailor, so he doesn't have a bunch of orders, but he's got some stuff to do, he's got some work to do, and he's working very hard at it. And, he's working, at his, like, little table by the window, and he hears a lady down on the street who's like, "Jams for sale! Jams for sale!" And he's like, "Oh, come up here, I would love to buy some of your jams." And she's like, "Oh, great." So this lady walks up with her basket full of jams. And I don't know if you guys have ever carried a basket full of jams, but just imagine like a bunch of heavy glass jars of shit. She carries that up 3 flights of stairs because the tailor only lives and works out of the top apartment in this little house building thing. So she carries them all the way up there, and then he makes her take all the jams she has available, put them all out on the table so that he can smell them all, get little sample spoonfuls of all of the jams, so he can figure out which one he would like to buy. And then he picks a jam and he goes, "This one looks good to me. I want 4 ounces, and I won't pay a penny over a quarter pound." Which, if you don't know, 4 ounces is a quarter of a pound. So he's saying on the money or nothing else. And the lady is like, "Okay, so I did all this work so you could buy 4 ounces of jam?" If you aren't familiar, for my American audience, 4 ounces of jam is half a cup of jam. All that work for half a cup of jam. And so she has to pack up all her shit and then stomp back down those 3 flights of stairs to get back out there to sell to some real customers who would actually buy a bunch of her stuff. Like, she thought she was going to make a big sale for this tailor, and he was like, "No, I only want 4 ounces. So he's got his little cup of jam, and he's like, "This is going to be delicious, but I'm going to wait till I finish this order." So he puts the jam off to the side, starts working back on his order. And then he's like, "Well, if I'm going to have jam, I have to have bread." So he goes and gets a loaf of bread out of the cupboard, puts that next to the jam, and is like, "But I really should finish that order." So he goes back over to his order, starts working on it, doing some more stitching. And then when he looks over, turns out all the flies that were living in the rafters, I don't know if you know this, there were flies living in his rafters, okay? They see this feast laid out before them, and they're like, "Oh, for us," right? So flies do what flies do. They descend upon the jam and bread, and as the tailor is stitching away, he looks over, and he's like, "Excuse you? Like, how dare you touch my bread and jam? That is not for you." So the tailor is so offended that he grabs his little ruler, and he walks over there, and he swings one mighty swing, okay, guys? One giant swing, and he ends up killing all 7 of the flies that landed on his bread and toast. Disgusting. In one go. And he, you guys, is so chuffed, so amazingly, like, pleased with himself for killing 7 flies in one blow, that he's like, "Nothing more amazing than this feat has ever happened in the history of ever, and I must let the entire town know." So then he goes and he gets himself some extra fabric, some scrap fabric, and stitches and embroiders into it 7 in one blow. Makes himself a sash. throws this sash on. So everyone who sees him will know that he killed 7 flies in one blow, okay? And as he's stitching this, he's like, I'm going to tell my neighbor, I'm going to tell the baker, I'm going to tell the butcher and the candlestick maker. In fact, I don't think this news is limited to just one town. I think the entire world needs to hear about how I took out 7 in one blow. And so you know what he does, guys? He takes a little bit of cheese from his cupboard, puts it in his pocket, and then he sets off into the great wide world with his sash across his chest, just blazing in the sun so everyone can see 7 in one blow right across his chest. And he heads out, and he absolutely announces 7 in one blow to the city, and then just continues to walk into the wilderness to let the world know that he was able to kill 7 in one blow. So he goes about his way, you know, following the paths as you do to get to the next town so he can share the great news about how amazing he is and what an incredible feat he has accomplished. And he happens to run across a giant. And the giant's like, hey, look at you, little weirdo. What are you doing out here? And he looks at the giant and he goes, Giant, I bet you didn't know that you're in the presence of greatness. And the giant's like, you don't say. What makes you so great, my little friend? And he's like, look across my chest. You can read. What an amazing guy I am. And the giant looks down and he goes, oh, it says 7 in one blow. Huh. And in the giant's head, he's like, this man has killed 7 men. And as a fellow man killer, like recognizes like. Mad respect, little guy. But I kind of kill everyone who passes by me, so I gotta test your mettle, see how good you are, Mr. 7 in one blow. Like, 7 in one blow is great, but it's not like giant great, you know what I mean? And the man's like, go ahead, test me. I can do anything you can do. So the giant picks up a stone and he squeezes it so hard that a couple drops of water leak from the stone, right? And the giant's like, do what I just did. If you're so mighty, you can do this. And the tailor's like, is that all? Is that all you want me to do? Boy, sit down and watch. Watch me work, okay? So the giant does sit down. And the tailor reaches into his pocket, pulls out the little lump of cheese, and squeezes it so hard that a steady stream of whey comes flowing out. It's not very good cheese, guys. So much so that the giant's like, that's more water than I got out of my stone. That's a little bit impressive. But it's not that impressive, okay? And any old giant can wring water out of stone. But can you throw as high as I can? So the giant picks up another huge boulder, tosses it into the air, and it goes up super high. Like, you can barely see it. That's how high it goes. It also comes crashing back down to earth in a way that the tailor has to sort of jump to the side to avoid being smashed to death, which I think low-key was the giant's plan. But while they were watching the stone fly into the air, the tailor looked around, because, you know, he can't really throw rocks that high, guys. And he sees a little bird stuck in a bush next to him. So very quickly, he snatches that bird, stuffs it in his pocket. Then the rock crashes down. He jumps out of the way. The giant's like, do better. And he's like, watch, I can throw a stone so far that it will never return. I actually can do that. And the giant's like, I would love to see it. Go for it. So the tailor takes a little bird out of his pocket, tosses it into the sky. The bird opens up its wings and flies the fuck away because it was just in some guy's random fucking pocket. I would fly away too. And the giant's like, whoo, shit, that's impressive. But you know what? The ultimate test, if you're a strong guy, is that you can carry anything. So you can help me carry this big old tree out of the woods. And the tailor's like, yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to help you since it seems like you might be struggling with something so large. I would love to do that for you. So you put the trunk on your shoulder and I'll take the leafy bits and the branches back here because those are clearly the heaviest part. You can tell it's the heaviest part because it's the biggest part. So you see how big it is? I'll take that part. You take the little twig, the little pittance of I wouldn't even call it a twig. Like the little piece of bark of a stump. Like a trunk. You take that. And the giant's like, oh yeah, okay, makes logical sense to me. So the giant takes the big old tree, puts the trunk on his shoulder, and then as he turns around to walk towards the next town, our little tailor, who obviously is not holding up the back end of this tree by any means, jumps into the tree because the giant can't see behind him. And as they're walking, he starts whistling, right? So he's sitting there in the branches of the tree getting a free ride from this giant who can't see him, and is just like, how's it going back there, bud? And he's like, it's great. And then whistles a jaunty little tune to make the giant think, like, this is super easy for him. He's not breaking a sweat at all. In fact, he whistles this tune all the way into the next town, well, on the outskirts of, because of course they don't just let a giant in. And then the giant's like, oh my god, I gotta get this off my back. And he drops the tree down, and just before the tree hits the ground, the tailor jumps out, and he goes back there to hold a couple of branches to act like he's been carrying it the whole time. And then the giant looks at him and he's like, you know what? You are definitely one of the mightiest I've ever known. There's only one test left of your incredible strength. And you see that cherry tree over there? We should help ourselves. And, the tailor's like, oh, I am actually quite famished. I would love to have some cherries. And he's like, great. So the giant goes over there. He grabs the top of the cherry tree. He pulls it all the way down to the ground and hands it to the tailor. And the tailor's like, what's this? And he's like, grab hold. You're so mighty. And he's like, oh, of course, I can hold on to this. This is nothing for someone who has 7 in one blow. So he grabs the top of the tree, and when the giant lets go, the tailor flies into the sky, basically somersaults over the tree, and lands on the other side. And the giant starts laughing, and he's like, you couldn't even hold on to this tree. What? I thought you were so mighty. And he's like, excuse me, this was not a skill issue, okay? This was nothing. I could have held it down as a person with 7 in one blow. I could have absolutely held this tree down, but I jumped over it because there's hunters and they're shooting in the bush over there. You can't see them because they're hiding in the bushes, but they were shooting at us, so I jumped over the tree to dodge the bullets. If you're mighty, you should be able to jump over the tree as well. And then Giant's like, well, shit. Okay, let me try. So the giant tries, but he can't actually get over the tree. He gets stuck all up in the branches. Giants aren't great jumpers. I don't know if you guys know this. It's a fact. Scientific. Don't look it up. Giants aren't great jumpers. And so he's like, well, shit, little man, I think you might actually be the mightiest among us. I've never seen a giant achieve any of these feats, not all of them at least. So he's like, okay, well, come back to my cave with me and my giant buds. You can hang out with us for the night and party with us. And the tailor's like, fantastic. I would love to. And when he gets to the giant's cave, it's actually quite roomy. It's actually roomier than his little tailor workshop. So he's like, this is nice. This is really nice. So they show him to his room. It's a big old giant bed, of course, because I don't have guest beds in people size. It's a big old giant bed. So he's like, here, have your feast, drink some wine, chill for the night. This is your room. And he's like, cool. I love it. Amazing. This room is so big. It's so spacious. And that's what he does. He eats his fill, drinks his fill, goes to bed. When he gets into the bed that night, the tailor's like, this bed is actually too big. He's having a bit of a Goldilocks moment. It's not just right. So he can't actually sleep comfortably in it. So he leaves the blankets up there in a mess, doesn't remake the bed, and goes into the corner, pulls his little hat over his eyes, and goes to sleep. Turns out in the night, the giant came in with his buddies, and they came in with their big old clubs, and they beat the shit out of that bed. They beat that bed so much that they broke the bed in two. Because they were like, that guy's fucking terrifying. He's stronger than a giant, and he's just a little tiny human guy. Plus, he killed 7 men in one blow. We can't let him live. So they kill him in the middle of the night. They break apart the bed. They're like, wow, kill that guy. And then they go about their business. They go back to their beds. They get up in the morning. They go hunting. They do giant business, right? The tailor wakes up in the morning. He was in the corner in the dark. They didn't see him. So then he's like, well, I'm glad I didn't sleep in that bed because they would have freaking killed me. So the tailor goes after the giants, to go check out, like, wait, what happened? Let me see what's up, guys. How come you tried to murder me in the middle of the night? That kind of thing, right? So he goes out there, he sees the giants, he's like, hey, buds, what's going on? They see him, and they're like, I thought we murdered him. He's so mighty that he can't be killed by 3 giant clubs in the middle of the night? Oh, hell no. So the giants run away. They absolutely turn tail and run the fuck away. Because this guy, 7 in one blow, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So he decides to continue on his way. And he continues for a day and a night until he gets to the next kingdom. Okay? Kingdom, guys. And when he goes through, people are reading his sash as he's walking through the city. And they're seeing the 7-1 blow. And they're like, oh my god, what a terrifying warlord. He must be like one of the greatest warriors of all time. What's he doing in our city? And the tailor's just strutting through, chest puffed out, having a good old walk through the city until he gets all the way up into the royal gardens, and he's like, I'm tired, I'm gonna take a little nappy poo here. You know, this is a good place for a guy to take a rest, nicer than any place I've been so far. So he lays down in the royal gardens and takes a nap. Meanwhile, all the people he had passed by in the city all immediately ran to the castle to be like, oh my god, there's a guy who's killed 7 people in one blow just walking through the city. You gotta do something about it. So the king's like, 7 in one blow. 7 in one blow? What a mighty warrior that must be. Find him, bring him to me. I want to put him in my service. So they don't have to go far because he's in the royal gardens. And the messenger's like, hey, bud, I don't want to startle you awake because you're clearly a fearsome, like, manslayer, but you can't actually sleep here. But also, I have a message for you from the king. He wants to see you. And the tailor's like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. That's why I came here. I can't wait to meet the king. So the messenger takes the tailor back to the king, and the king's like, hey, I heard that you're a great warrior. And he's like, I am, in fact, if you look at my beautiful sash. I killed 7 in one blow. And the king's like, that's amazing. Would you like to enter into my service? And he goes, I would love to. I'm more than ready to. I think I might be the best person to enter into your service. I mean, after all, how many knights in your court have killed 7 in one blow? And the king's like, none. Absolutely none. And he's like, I know. Not everybody can do it. It's just me. That's why I have the sash. And the king's like, I know. That's amazing. So, you know, while they're sitting here, like, blowing smoke up each other's butts, right? The other members of the court are terrified at the idea of having a person who can kill 7 people in one blow just walking around the castle living their regular life, right? And to the point where the soldiers and the generals that were already in existence were like, if the king employs this guy, we're going to be out of a job, for starters. And secondly, I don't want to fuck with that guy. Like, I don't want him anywhere near me. Are you crazy, king? Like, what's this guy doing? But the king and the tailor are like, you're so amazing. And, like, just, you know, hyping each other up. So the king's like, yeah, join my service. I will give you a home. I'll pay you great amounts of gold. And you can fight for me and do cool things for me. And the tailor's like, I would love to. As a matter of fact, I would absolutely love to. So they show the tailor to his room. So he goes off to his little house. The generals and the soldiers that were sitting there, like, gossiping in the wings go up to the king and they're like, hey, we can't fuck with a guy who can kill 7 people in one blow. In fact, we all want to leave. So could you release us from our service? Because we don't want to be near that guy. And then the king's like, what? None of my toy soldiers want to stay and play with me now that I have a cool, newer action figure? That sucks. That sucks a lot for me. Okay, well, now I'm regretting letting this guy join my services. Like, what can I possibly do? So the king thinks about it for quite a while. Because he can't just send that, you know, a man killer like that away. Because what if he gets mad? Like, what if he gets mad that he gets fired and then decides that he's going to kill the king? He can kill 7 people in one blow, but whoever stands in front of him will also die. He can wipe out the entire royal court with just a couple of hits, right? So he's like, I don't want to piss him off, but I don't want him around anymore because my other toys don't like it. I mean, my other servants don't like, my other knights don't like it when I replace them with, you know, a bigger upgrade in that department. So the king then decides he has a great idea, because there's some monsters roaming the countryside, right? Like, you know, the kingdom might be peaceful, but there's some monsters out there that he would like to get taken care of, and, you know, if they could maybe take care of that guy in the process, it solves all of his problems. So he sends a message to the tailor, and he tells the tailor, hey, there's 2 giants that are causing all this damage. They're robbing us, they're murdering, they're pillaging, they're burning down villages. No one can go near them without being in mortal peril. So if you kill those 2 giants, I'll give you my only daughter to be your wife, and half the kingdom for her dowry. And I'll send 100 horsemen with you for support. And so the tailor's like, I absolutely can do this. I mean, what a lucky guy I am. Not every guy gets offered a princess and half a kingdom. And I am pretty deserving of it with my 7 and 1 below. I can do this. I'll conquer the giants, but I don't actually need your horsemen. You can fucking keep those guys here. I don't fucking want them. I'm gonna go and take care of these 2 giants because I killed 7 in one go. So 2 giants, not a problem. So he sets off into the woods. The horsemen that were supposed to go with him are like, boy, you're crazy. And they follow him for a little bit because they like, we want to see what this guy does. So they get to the edge of the woods. He's like, I don't need your services anymore. I know where to go from here. And they're like, are you sure? Because everyone who goes up against these giants absolutely dies. And the tailor's like, 7 and 1 below, obviously. So he goes out a little deeper into the woods. And he comes across the 2 giants, and they are sleeping, snoring. They're snoring so loudly that the trees are moving in time with their snores. This is how powerful their snores are. This is how big these giants are, okay? And the tailor picks up a bunch of stones, puts them in this pocket, and he climbs up a tree. And once he's in the tree, he drops 1 stone on one giant's chest. That giant wakes up and is like, what the fuck? And shoves the giant next to him. That giant's like, what? I didn't do anything. And they both roll over, go back to sleep. And then the tailor drops another stone, this time on the other giant's chest. So that giant wakes up. He looks around all crazy, pushes his neighbor. He's like, what the fuck, bro? And the other giant's like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. And they both go back to sleep. This carries on for quite a while, okay? The tailor's just antagonizing the fuck out of these giants, making them think that the other guy is like poking them in their sleep. Until he gets to the point where he drops 2 stones at the same time. So these little giants went from being like, oh, what are you doing? Stop hitting me. Stop touching me, Mom. To being like, oh my God, fuck you. And then they start fighting. And they don't just fight like a little bit, guys. They fight a lot of bit. And then they're like, yeah, okay, we got all of our punches out. We're cool. Go back to bed, brother. So they're like, all right. So they lay back down to go to bed again. The tailor absolutely face palms and he's like, okay. He takes the biggest stone that he has in his pocket, throws it as hard as he can at the giant so it hits him in the chest really hard. And then the giant jumps up and he's like, you're a big fucking meanie and that's why Mom is always yelling at you. I'm paraphrasing. He could have said anything here. And then he grabs a tree and starts to beat it against the other giant's head. And the other giant jumps up and is like, I'm actually Mom's favorite, or something along those lines. Picks up a tree and starts beating the shit out of his other giant. So now they're just walloping each other, absolutely beating the life out of each other with trees. And they're ripping up trees left and right because they're breaking them against each other's heads. And they do this for so long that both of them fall down dead. They killed each other. Needless to say, Mom could have maybe intervened at some point, like maybe gave him a hug or 2. But these 2 giants kill each other. So Taylor climbs back down, and he's like, huh. I guess I lucked out that they didn't pick up my tree, because I would have had to jump to another tree. But fortunately, a guy who can kill 7 in one blow is very nimble. So it wouldn't have been a big deal to me. I would have hopped across like a squirrel. No big deal. I could have done it. But I didn't have to. Lucky me. So he exits the woods. All the other soldiers are sitting there waiting. They're like, how long do we have to wait until we're sure that he's dead? And they're like, I don't know. And just wait. And then they see the tailor coming out of the woods and they're like, bro, what? Bro, what? And he's like, yeah, I know. Crazy, right? I actually killed them. You can go back and check. They ripped a bunch of trees up. It was a big battle. A big battle. I killed them. They're dead now. So the horsemen are like, yeah, we don't believe you. They run out, they get on their horses, they ride in there, they see the carnage, the absolute bloody massacre of these 2 giants, and they're like, holy fuck, this guy is terrifying. What the shit? How did he do this? So the tailor and the horsemen return to the king's court, and he's like, all right, well, let me see that daughter and half your kingdom. And the king's like, actually, I didn't really want to give you my daughter in the first place, so there's a unicorn. A unicorn rampaging across the countryside. If you could take care of that, bring it here. Maybe get gored on its horn or not. I don't want you to, but I mean, if you could. Yeah, just go take care of that. And then you can marry my daughter and have half the kingdom. And the tailor's like, all right, that's only 1 unicorn. I just killed 2 giants, and you already know, it's on my sash, 7 in one below. So yeah, I can handle 1 unicorn. Crazy. So he takes a rope and an axe. He goes into the woods. He doesn't have to wait very long, because this unicorn's like, get the fuck out of my woods, bro. This unicorn, absolutely territorial. It's probably got a little bit of extra horse in it. That's why it's extra scary. So, this unicorn starts charging at him, and he waits. He waits. He doesn't run out of the way. He waits, letting the horse come closer and closer, the unicorn come closer and closer to him, up until it's about the last second. Then he jumps out of the way, and the unicorn manages to lodge its horn into the tree behind him. And so, he throws the rope around it, uses the axe to wedge its horn out, and then he just has domesticated this animal magically. Because I don't know if you guys know this, don't look it up. You put a rope around a unicorn, they're domesticated. And he brings it back to the king, and the king's like, I didn't actually want a fucking unicorn, bro. I wanted you to die. I mean, I actually have another task for you. Before the wedding, you have to take care of this boar that the huntsmen aren't able to kill, because this boar is an absolute menace. It's the biggest boar we've ever seen, and the huntsmen can't kill it. So you have to kill it before the wedding can happen, because it's just gonna interrupt the festivities. And the tailor's like, okay, all right. And then they're like, we'll send the huntsmen with you. And he's like, I don't actually need them. This is child's play. Remember, 7 and 1 below. One boar, not a big issue. So he doesn't take the huntsman into the woods with him. Again, he goes into the woods. He sees the boar. And when he sees the boar, he can see why the huntsmen were like, oh, we're good, bro. We didn't actually want to go with you anyways. Because the boar is actually, in fact, very terrifying. So terrifying that he runs into the woods. He runs away from the boar. Because he's not stupid, despite everything that we've seen so far. He runs away into the woods. And he runs until he comes across a little chapel. And he runs inside the chapel. The boar runs in after him, because this boar is like out to get him. This boar is out for freaking blood. The boar runs in after him. He runs into the chapel. Then he jumps out a window, runs around the chapel to the front, and then slams the doors and locks them shut before the boar can get out. And it's a boar, so it can't actually get out of the doors. It doesn't have thumbs. So then he goes back out of the forest, and he's like, hey, huntsman, you guys thought I was going to die? I actually caught that boar for you. It's in this little chapel back here. Let me show you. So the huntsmen get there, and they're like, oh my god, this boar killed my brother and my uncle and my cousins. But somehow you managed to catch it? Well, shit. So there. They go back to the king. They tell the king what happened. The king's like, fuck. Okay. Guess I gotta keep my promise. Here's half my kingdom. Here's my daughter. We're having a wedding. And they get married. The tailor and the princess, in fact, do get married. He never takes that sash off, and I'm willing to bet he doesn't even take it off in the bedroom, if y'all know what I mean. He wears that sash all the time. And things seem to be okay for a little while. Everyone's getting along happily, hunkily-dorily, right? Up until one night, now the new queen, because they have their own half of a kingdom, so she's a queen of this kingdom, happens to hear her husband, our tailor, mumbling in the darkness, in his sleep, basically, tailor talk. Talking about filling orders, sewing stuff, adding buttons to things. And she's like, brother, ew, right? I'm going to keep saying this until it comes out of my head. I'm so sorry, guys. That's going to be in here for a while. Blame TikTok. But she's like, disgusting. So she goes and tells her dad, she's like, I think my husband isn't actually a lord or a knight or anything like that. I think he's a commoner. I think he's a freaking tailor. Because at night, when he dreams, all he talks about is fixing clothes. And the king's like, ew. He's just a povo, like a poor folk? He's just a regular guy? No way, disgusting. And she's like, I know, disgusting. So, the king's like, okay, I got a plan. Tonight, after you go to sleep, get up, unlock the door. My knights will come in, they'll snatch him up, tie him up, and they'll put him on a ship, take him far away from here, and we'll be rid of him forever. And the queen's like, I like that idea. But, unfortunately, they're saying this in open court. The king's court, mind you, not the queen's court, in the other half of the kingdom. But they're saying it in open court. And it turns out the tailor, as obnoxious as he might be, has a couple of friends. So the king's squire is like, oh man, I like that guy. So he runs to go tell the tailor. And the tailor's like, oh, hey, thanks for letting me know. Don't even worry about it. I got this covered. So, that night, when they go to bed, The young queen gets up, she walks up to the door, she unlocks it, she crawls back into bed like nothing happened. The soldiers come in, and they're all ready to snatch him up, but the tailor, who was pretending to be asleep at this point, is like, "Get me my yardstick, because I have struck down 7 in one blow, killed 2 giants, led away a unicorn, captured a wild boar, and I'm supposed to be afraid of those who are just standing inside my bedroom?" Pretending to be asleep. The soldiers who hear this are like, "Ooh, fuck no, I remember this guy. I don't like this guy, and I want to fuck with this guy. He's killed 7 men in one blow." So they run away in fear. They're like, "No, we don't need to do this." In fact, they leave the country because they're like, "I want to get as far the fuck away from that murderous asshole as possible." And, yeah. That's the end of the story. The tailor stays the king. He lives happily ever after with his wife, who had just a moment of ugliness. Apparently they got past that. Maybe they had some couples counseling or something, and he was like, "It's actually not so bad that I'm a tailor, because I can fix all your stuff for you." And she was like, "Oh, that's a good point." And now we have, like, something in common, our embroidery. And he's like, "I know exactly." So they managed to work that out. They live happily ever after. And that is the end of the story of the Brave Little Tailor, 7 in one blow. The most obnoxious hero in the history of heroes. And I had to look it up because I was like, what is the actual meaning of this story? Because what I'm reading is, like, obnoxious, egotistical man somehow, like, fails upward. But apparently the moral of the story is that it's better to be clever than strong. And to solve your problems with cleverness and wit, use your brain. Which I guess I can kind of see, because he does solve his problems with his brain. Like, he's not a complete idiot. But at the same time, I was like, how come he has to be so fucking obnoxious? He killed 7 flies and somehow became king for doing that, which is wild to me. So let me know what you guys think. Do we stan the tailor, or do we not stan the tailor? Does he get to join, like, the annals of history, like the maid from Jack and the Beanstalk? And by history, I mean Storycraft history. Or, you know, do we shun the tailor and leave him out of our recollections of the best moments of Storycraft? Because I don't know how I feel about this guy, but part of me is like, ugh, shut up. All you did was kill some flies. Also, you should have bought all that lady's jam. How dare you make her walk up all those stairs only to buy half a cup of jam, you asshole. But yeah, that's my story, guys. If you made it to the end, I appreciate your faces. And as always, I am always accepting requests for Storycraft stories. So if there's one you want to hear, I will be wrapping up this series probably by the end of the year once we hit 100 episodes. So if you want to get your request in, you got to get them in now. Leave them in the comments and I will pick them up to do. I will make sure that I do all the requests I can before we wrap up this series. And if I get more requests than that, then I will continue the series until I do all the requests, because that seems only fair. But that's gonna be it for me, guys, for now. I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting. Bye!